that kind of shows the power behind connecting with someone and doing right by them and doing what's in their best interest. Buy when everybody else is selling and sell when everybody else is buying.
Welcome. You're listening to the Apartment Investing Show. This is where you'll learn how to start or scale your apartment investing career. Your host, Adam Adams, took cheerleading classes as a kid because he thought it would help him get girls. Adam and his guests will show you how to create residual income by investing in apartment communities. Now, here's your host, Adam AAA Adams.
Welcome back to the Creative Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Adam AAA Adams, and today I'm particularly excited because the topic that we're going to be sharing on the podcast today, with Will Harvey's help, is something that everybody needs to know. It's something that some of us forget about, and others, we're like, hey, we crushed this. But I think that the way that we're going to dive into the subject of really connecting with people is going to help those who are already good to open their mind to another couple of things, or to realize that they need to go a little bit more. And those of us who don't try to connect with people are going to say, no wonder I haven't been successful, because I haven't been doing what Will Harvey does. Will Harvey has been in real estate since 2016. He was an incredible mortgage officer. And the reason why he was so successful is because he connects with people. Now, most of the people listening to the show happen to be apartment syndicators. Most of the people that listen to the show are trying to raise private money. They're trying to convince a broker to give them the deal. So connecting with people really is going to help us to be able to get those deals from the brokers, get that money from our passive investors. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Will. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Adam. Thank you so much for having me on here. I appreciate that intro. I think you overdid it a little bit, but I do appreciate it.
I overdid it. I overdo everything. Some people call me melodramatic. When I get a headache, it ruins my day. It ruins my day. And when someone smiles at me, it just changes my day for the better. So
you're like a 0 or a 10. There's no.
I'm a 0 or a 10.
Right.
You got it. I'm a 2 or an 11.
Right.
I'm a 2 to 11. All right, Mr. Will Harvey. There's a few things about your background that I haven't yet shared with the listener, and I want you to think about for apartment investing and or for connecting with people, what parts of your background or your history really relate to today's subject.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got into the mortgage business, as you alluded to, and I think that's really when I cut my teeth. And it's the whole, Malcolm Gladwell, he wrote the book, I can't think of the name, the 10,000 hour rule. And that's kind of when I got my 10,000 hours under my belt. I remember the first person I ever met with, I met them in their living room, and it was nerve-wracking. And I prepared, I did all this stuff. I printed out, they were consolidating debt. They were refinancing and consolidating debt, paying off some credit cards, doing a cash out refi. And I remember that I was just petrified to go meet with them. So, and I was only, I'm only 26 now, but I was 22 at the time. And I went and met with them. I had all this stuff prepared. I had all these like charts and graphs. This is why you should refi. This is why, blah, blah, blah. And then I just realized that after that meeting and then a few more, I just realized that to get people to do business with you and to get people to buy into whatever you're doing, you have to connect with them and they have to like you. I mean, that really is the biggest piece, and one of my mentors told me that if somebody likes you, if you can give them a reason to like you and they grow and they trust you and all of that, they'll find a way and a reason to work with you. So that was huge when I was taught that, and it really shifted my thinking. I saw so many guys in the business that were, I hate the whole salesy thing and
everyone does. Everyone
exactly
hates it. We don't know that, but it really rubs us the wrong way, I think.
Yeah, but so many people try to. It's like how do I? What do I say? What are these questions I need to answer their objections? I'm like, forget all that. You just need to connect with people, and you need to show them that you're going to be a good steward and that you're trustworthy and all of that. It's crazy as it sounds. Like I said, I'm not in the mortgage business anymore. I had somebody reach out to me today, and as we record this, he reached out to me today, and he said back in 2017, I told him, he reached out, he was referred to me by a financial planner, and he was looking into doing a refinance. And I told him that I looked at his rate, I looked at what it would cost to do the refi, and I told him that it just simply, it kind of made sense, but not really. And I advised him not to do it. And I would have made good money on it, but he really respected that. It was really refreshing to him that I gave him good information and didn't advise him to do something that's not in his best interest, or maybe only a little bit in his best interest. And today he reached out 3 years later, and he was just saying, "Hey, you're the first person I reached out to, and it's because you gave me good information back then, and we're trustworthy. So I wanted to see if you're in the mortgage business." And obviously I'm not, so I referred him to somebody I know. But that was cool, and that kind of shows the power behind connecting with someone and doing right by them and doing what's in their best interest.
That resonates a lot. Thank you for sharing that story. I really appreciate it. Will, you are 26 years old as we're recording this episode, and you've accomplished a lot of cool things. And one of the notable things is you're part owner. You've partnered in some student housing and a couple of apartment communities as well. I think you have like 500 plus residents, 500 tenants that are paying rent every single month. Do you think that your ability to connect with people, even at a younger age, do you think that's part of why you have these 500 plus tenants paying you rent every single month?
Absolutely. Because our group, CEO Capital Partners, when we got into this, we had some immediate success. We were brought in and as co-sponsors with somebody else, and on their deal. And I had some guys that I knew from the mortgage business. I knew a lot of people in real estate, realtors, and I went to those people and just would sit down with them, show them what we're doing, and I just would connect and tell them this is what we hope to do. This is why. I made sure to really educate myself prior to doing that, and was just very open, very transparent, very non-salesy. And I was just like, "Hey, if you're interested, we'll add you to our list, and as deals come up, we'll shoot them over to you." And sure enough, once the first deal came up, I had some investors come in from that, and I think it was 100% because of how I was able to connect, and some other guys in our group, same thing. They had guys that knew them, liked them, trust them, and that's how we were able to get into those deals.
Perfect. Thank you for going into that. I have three things on my agenda now. So just as I've spoken with you a little bit, I've built these three things that I want to make sure that we address, and we can just address them in order. And the first one that I want to talk about is just CEO Capital Partners. Just how did you come to be? Who's on the team? Why are they on the team? And the second thing that I think is going to be really important is going into basically, how do you connect with people? Okay, so we've really talked about why it's important. We've talked about some of the benefits that you've got, but I really just want to dive into how do we connect with people better, okay? And then the last thing that I think is really important is to bring it all together and talk about, how CEO Capital Partners is connecting with people, and how Will Harvey is connecting with people, and specifically, how that's helping you with brokers. So I just want to talk about within like the apartment investing industry, how you're raising more money. You kind of shared that a little bit more a second ago, but also furthermore, a little bit about how it's helping you with brokers, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start. I have a really horrible memory. So I think the first thing you asked is how did we form CEO Capital Partners? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll start with that. So CEO Capital Partners was started. I actually knew a husband and wife. We had done some business together, and when I was in the mortgage business, they were real estate agents, and I was talking to the husband one day, and he's telling me about what he's doing and some things he's investing in. I was like, well, let's get together, because I want to tell you what I'm focused on and what I'm trying to do moving forward. And it was multifamily real estate. I had started educating myself and told him, I was like, this is why multifamily is so cool. Economies of scale, the tax advantages, yada, yada, yada. And we ended up, his wife was more introverted, and she didn't want to be the face of the company or be out, meeting brokers or anything like that. Whereas that was my skill set. So it was this perfect yin and yang scenario where I would be the one out meeting brokers, and she would be underwriting them, or at least doing the main underwrite. And we did that for a while. We're trying to find deals. And eventually, shortly after that, I was at the gym and I see Stuart Dukeman, who's the head guy of CEO Capital Partners. And I went to school with his son. He coached me in Little League football. And I saw on Facebook that they were doing some, they were looking for apartments as well. They had been posting about that. So I went up to him. I was like, hey, Stuart, long time, or I think I called him Mr. Dukeman. So, hey, Mr. Dukeman, long time no talk. I see you guys are going after apartments, and we connected and ended up getting together about a week after that. And then they we kind of went our separate ways, but remained in touch. They ended up getting a deal under LOI, and they brought me and those people I was talking to you that I was telling you about. They brought us in, and we were going to I believe we were just going to do it as a JV. So we were all going to put some money in and all have a role in the deal. And that deal ended up, it was a 48 unit in Newport News, Virginia. It ended up not closing because there was, we found out even before it got under contract, which is really good, saved a lot of money. But we found out it was zoned as a motel. So we obviously pulled the plug on that one. And right after that happened, everybody was kind of thinking it. And then I think Stuart said it. He was like, we worked really well together, even though this never closed. We worked really well together. Why don't we all just merge and form a new company? And that's how CEO Capital Partners was born. And the whole idea behind the name, that was Stuart's doing. He's been in business for 30 plus years, and very, very successfully in a temporary staffing company. And he realized at the last recession about 10 years ago the importance of being diversified. All his eggs were in the one basket, which was his company, and they got rocked. He got hit pretty hard, and is pretty open about that. And after that, he just realized the need to diversify a bit, and that's where the term CEO Capital Partners, that's where the idea came up, where we help busy executives and business owners create passive streams of income for themselves. So that's the idea behind CEO and kind of the mission there.
Thank you for going into that.
Absolutely.
Second part that we want to touch on is, how do we become better at connecting with other people? So do you have some tips, tricks, strategies, steps?
I can just share what has worked for me. I've never really given this a ton of thought. I've never really dove into the psychology behind it or anything like that. I'm sure there's some people a lot smarter than me who could give better answers. But what's worked for me has just been, I think the biggest thing that's worked for me is listening and really being thoughtful with whatever, and not just saying. So a lot of times people will listen to someone, or they'll quote be listening to them, and they're just waiting to speak. I think that listening to that person and really kind of digesting and processing what they say and giving a thoughtful response is the most important thing. and just being empathetic to what people are saying. And it's also, on the flip side, it's how you portray that to them. So voice inflection, those subtle voice inflections and things like that you're able to do to really connect with someone definitely helps. And again, I don't really know the I don't know the whole thing with you raise your voice if you want to do one thing, or you lower your voice if you want to do something else. But that's been what has worked for me, just kind of figuring out that over time, and just being emotionally intelligent enough to figure out what the person is looking for, and how can I help them get it? How can I add value, and how can I genuinely show them that I care?
I always tell my clients, if I'm helping them to talk to brokers or helping them to raise money, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Bingo.
And so it's exactly what you were saying. I think what you said was more impactful than maybe some of the listeners may have expected. When you spend the time to hear and to understand what somebody's going through, that's when your response to that can make the most impact, right? I feel like that you were right. There's a lot of people that are trying to sell things, and they have their elevator pitch, and they're just kind of like, taking a couple of punches so that they can now punch. They're like, let's have the law of reciprocity.
Exactly.
I'm going to have you say some stuff, and now I want to say the stuff that I want to talk about. But with what you're saying and what you've done is really important. And it goes back to that story that you talked about with today. You had a phone call with this gentleman where 3 years ago you advised him not to refi, even though you were going to make money. So it was you thinking about his agenda, not your agenda. And when you can use those 2 ears, 1 mouth, and give feedback, advice that is specific to that other person, it's going to resonate with them so that 3 years later they call you. Or if it's a passive investor, they decide, you know what, I like Will. I wanna invest in his deals. Let me ask you.
Yeah, if I could add one more thing,
Please,
just jogged my memory.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the 2 ears, 1 mouth. So people love to talk, So some of the best meetings and the most fruitful meetings I've ever had are meetings where I've said like one word and the other person has talked the entire time, and it wasn't necessarily enjoyable for me, but because people love talking, and if I'm asking them questions and getting them to talk, they enjoy that. People enjoy when you show an interest in them, and when you show that you're genuinely caring and genuinely wanting to get to know them and want to get to know their just what's going on in their lives, their kids, their wife, their whatever. They enjoy talking about those things. And so if you can get them talking about that, it just naturally kind of breaks down a barrier between you and helps to build trust, in my opinion.
Yeah. So take me back to when you're working with that woman and before CEO Capital Partners, and she was really good at underwriting, and she wanted to be, in closed doors and just do her thing and do it really well.
Yep.
And you were more of the type of person that just loves people, loves to hang out with people, loves to get to know people. And it was really natural for you to get out and start talking to brokers. So based on this experience and the topic that we're talking about today, talking about connecting with people, talking about how it helped you, doing better in mortgages, and it also has helped you raise money for the 500 plus tenants that are paying you every single month. So what I want to move into is number 3, which is just kind of talking to brokers. So how do we put all of this together and help the listener who's had a lot of challenges? Because that's exactly what I see is listeners will give me a call, and one of the main things that they'll ask me is, brokers aren't taking me seriously, brokers aren't sending me deals, brokers don't want to talk to me, they're hanging up on me, they're sending me crappy deals from whatever, LoopNet or whatever. And so there is a real struggle with finding deals right now and communicating with brokers. And I think your skill can help those people who are really struggling with that right now. So would you kind of try to sum that up on how can we just be better at having a relationship with a real estate broker in order to have them send us deals?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was first getting started, I remember one way that I think I had a little bit of a leg up because being in the mortgage business, 99% of where you get your business are realtors. So I kind of had that. Now, obviously, a commercial broker is different than a residential real estate agent, but it was still I was constantly just going out for lunches and coffees with realtors. So I had a little bit of an advantage, but not a huge one. It was apples and oranges when I talked about. I thought that brokers would take me seriously because of the houses I owned. I was like 24, 25 at the time and figured they'd take me seriously, and they didn't give a crap about the houses. They're just like, how many apartments do you own? well, none, but look at these houses and I'm only, I'm young. And they're like, yeah, I don't care about that. So what I did to kind of beat them to that objection was it would be the first thing I would say when I talk to them. I'd call them and I was just very confident in myself, and I would say, hey, look, I don't own any apartments right now, and I know you get these calls all the time, but I've been able to accomplish this in a few years, own a few properties, and the natural progression is going to be to move into apartments. So I would say that it was just confidence and being truthful. I was truthful. I wasn't one of those that I think a lot of people, they might know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who owns a 100-unit apartment building, and then they say, well, we have 100 units and we, and I was just very truthful where I said, look, I've been in a high paying career. I've been in the mortgage business and I have connections. I am new to this, but here's why you should take a lunch. First off, I'm going to pay for it. So it's going to be a free lunch. So if you don't get any value in the meeting, you'll at least get a free lunch. And I found that worked. And I got a lot of brokers to meet with me based off that.
These 5 steps are amazing.
Oh,
Will,
thank you.
I put you on the spot and you came up with the exact formula that people need to do. It's perfect. This is one of my favorite episodes so far, just because
awesome.
of what you just said about talking to brokers. And
you must say that to everybody that comes on here. No, just kidding.
You go listen to all 300, 400 episodes.
I appreciate that. I really do.
See. All right. So here's the 5 steps. Number 1, confidence is huge. Not arrogance, but just understanding who you are and that you're worth something, because some people are nervous and shy and they back down from that. So number 1, confidence, huge. Number 2, you overcome objections in the beginning. I loved hearing that because do you remember 8 Mile with
yeah, of course, Eminem.
8 Mile, Eminem. So Marshall Mathers in 8 Mile, Slim Shady in 8 Mile, he starts out one of his raps where they're going against each other.
Yep.
And he's like, lives in a trailer. He's one of the only white rappers. He's whatever.
He basically brings up all the bad things about himself. Yep.
He brings it up. And
exactly.
When you can bring it up with confidence, overcome the objections like, hey, I haven't been into this for very long. But you say, hey, I know I haven't been into this very long. I know I haven't done this. I know I live in a trailer.
Right.
But it's fine. And then there's a little bit of NLP in step 3, Neuro Linguistic Programming.
Yep.
It's almost like hypnotic suggestions. As you're saying, the natural progression is to move into apartments. So step 3, you just say the natural progression is to move into apartments, which can sound like you're just thinking to yourself that that's your natural progression. But the interesting thing is what it does subliminally to your to that broker. He's going to start nodding his head. Yeah, that is true. That is the natural progression. Okay, he needs to move into apartments. And so now he's thinking, how can I help this guy? if you're someone else, if you don't have this same approach, they're not going to be thinking like, okay, this is the natural progression. So this is just complete genius stuff that you're coming up with. I love it. Confidence, overcoming the objections in the beginning, and then just letting them know that the natural progression for you as a 24-year-old back then with your 20 plus houses or whatever it was, the natural thing for you to do, the natural progression is for you to move into apartments. And then number 4 is you talked about honesty and integrity, just being real, being you, not trying to fake it till you make it, which is what others are teaching. And just how obvious it is when people say, my partners combined, we're like around 100.
Exactly.
You know, and so you are who you are, and you don't need to go outside of it, which shows more confidence in you. And the 5th one is you talk about paying for lunch. You're like, hey, look, I'm going to pay for lunch. Let's get together. And at worst, the worst thing is you get a free lunch out of it.
Yeah.
But you know, Will, as soon as you can sit down with them and have a conversation with them with confidence and overcoming those objections and sitting down and paying for their lunch, you know that they're going to want to be in your corner. They want to be in the 24-year-old, 25-year-old, 26-year-old's corner and help them do the natural progression. I love those 5 things that you stated. Amazing. Speaking of 5, we're going to get into the final 5. So quick word from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
What's Blue Spruce Boardroom? It's Adam Adams' private inner circle program that helps serious investors take their businesses to the next level with 24/7 access to our private Facebook community, exclusive mastermind retreats held at luxurious resorts around the country, bi-weekly coaching calls, education, support, and monthly meetings. This is the full immersion you need in order to get from where you are to where you want to be in your real estate business. When you join Blue Spruce Boardroom, you'll become close with Adam and the other members of this exclusive inner circle. You'll meet accredited investors, deal sponsors, high net worth key principals, as well as real estate influencers. The perfect combination for you to take your business to the next level. Apply today by following the link in the show notes.
And we're back with Mr. Will Harvey. Will, what's the most creative deal you've ever done?
The most creative deal I've ever done is one where I had my dad co-sign, because at the time I was actually making good money, but I didn't have a 2-year history. So I had my dad co-sign, and I bought this. It's crazy. It was a $400,000 rental. But I moved into it. But after I moved out, while I was there, I was doing Airbnb, and I had a tenant in the other room. Once I moved out, I got a tenant to come in and rent basically the entire house except for the Airbnb I had, which was in the lower level bedroom. So I was bleeding though. I made this deal with her. It was horrible because I was under contract to buy another house and I had to get a tenant in there. So I made a horrible deal for myself. But once that lease was up, what I did was, instead of getting someone in there, I leased out the bedrooms separately and kept doing the Airbnb. And it's perfect, and it cash flows well now. Where I was in the red, I was bleeding a little bit. Now I'm in the green on the other side. So by getting creative and kind of applying what I knew and had learned about apartments to that's a townhouse, I was able to get it to cash flow.
Yeah, that's what I love about your creative deal. Is it's exactly what I try to share on this podcast, is that creative real estate isn't just about like doing a subject to or doing a lease option. It's about creating a deal. Being creative is to create something, is to be able to think outside the box, is to be able to look at a problem and figure out a solution like an engineer would. You reverse engineer the problem, you figure out what the end result is, and then you put together the right solution. And for you had this single family townhouse, and it wasn't really cash flowing. It was basically in the red. And then you said to yourself, like, how can I? Well, if I put in multiple tenants at a time, utilize Airbnb, maybe that'll become a deal. Yeah. And all of a sudden now you're cash flowing great. So really appreciate you kind of going into that. It's all about having the most amount of tools in your tool belt. Yeah, a hammer doesn't always work. Sometimes you need a screwdriver. Sometimes you need a saw. Sometimes you need a sledgehammer.
Exactly.
You never know. I love that. Okay, so what is a book that you recommend to the listener?
I love the book Never Split the Difference. I think that's a great book. It's by, I believe, Chris Voss. It's a great book. It's about negotiating, but it's even, it goes beyond that. It's a great book.
Yeah. Chris is a very interesting fellow. Got to have him at one of our masterminds, and that was
no kidding.
Very cool to just kind of, Rod Cleef was there asking him, he said, tell these guys what you mean about the last 3 words. He goes, the last 3 words? And Rod Cleef is like, oh yeah, I mean this, and this, and this. And I just started busting up laughing. I'm all, he just did it on you, Rod.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's
anyway. Chris is a good guy.
He's literally a professional hostage negotiator.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
he's someone to listen to. Yep.
Never Split the Difference. You also mentioned Malcolm Gladwell's something about the 10,000 hours. Certainly, I've never read that myself, but I've heard other people bring it up. So
I think the book is actually called Outliers.
Outliers?
Yep.
Okay, well,
Great
after
book.
this, I've read Never Split the Difference multiple times, but I've never read the 10,000 hours book, Outliers, but I will definitely look that up. So 2 great books. Thank you for bringing them both up. Will, take me back. I know you've been in the real estate industry for around 4 years now, and you're still in your 20s. But back when you were barely 21 years old,
Right.
5 years ago, I want to know, I know you weren't in real estate, so what were you doing? What were you thinking? What were you worried about? What did you think you would do? Were you wanting to get into real estate? Like, what was going through your mind 5 years ago? And then after you answer that, all I want to know is where you plan to be 5 years from today.
So 5 years ago, I was actually at school playing football. I was at a school in Ohio Dominican University playing football, and I had no clue or desire to get into real estate. But fast forward, right when I got into the mortgage business, I had double hip surgery and got surgery and came home, and that's when I got into the mortgage business. And very soon after, I knew that real estate was what I was going to be doing long term. So 5 years, that's 5 years ago. 5 years from now, oh man, that's such a good question. I would say continue to here's what I'm looking forward to. I got into the business when everything was pretty hot and pretty sought after, at least in the apartment world. So my hope, and I know this is kind of, I'm naturally a contrarian, so this is a little bit dark and a little bit gloomy, but I'm looking forward to a downturn when prices drop, when cap rates open up a bit, and maybe some people give the properties back to the bank. I'm kind of looking forward to that because I really like Warren Buffett. I like how he's purchased. He's always gone with the value add model with all the businesses he's done, and he advocates to buy when there's blood in the streets. You know, buy when everybody else is selling, and sell when everybody else is buying. So that's what I'm looking for, and I think within the next in the next few years we should get at least a softening of the demand.
What's one way you give back?
So my mom started a nonprofit, Helping Haitian Angels. It's an orphanage in Haiti, started in 2008, and it's pretty awesome. So helpinghaitianangels.org is the website. The
website is helpinghaitianangels.org?
Yep. Helping Haitian. Haitian is spelled H-A-I-T-I-A-N. So helpinghaitianangels.org.
That'll be in the show notes, so you can just scroll down. If you're listening right now, just scroll down, and you can go to helpinghaitianangels.com. You don't even need to worry about how to spell it. Thank you. .org. So you don't even need to know how to spell it. Just scroll down, and the link is there. How do people find you? What is the one way that they find you or get a hold of you?
They can email me, will@ceocapitalpartners.com. Or they can listen to our podcast, Wealth Junkies. So we're on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, all that stuff. So
perfect. So they can either go to Wealth Junkies on just wherever they're listening to this podcast, or they could email you directly at will@ceocapitalpartners.com.
That's it.
Awesome. Really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm going to let you go, but until next time, my friend, think outside the box. As a reminder, any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are for accredited investors only. And if you're interested in working with me and my team, then go to realbluespruce.com and click Get on the List. It's that simple. Just click Get on the List to start passively investing. This has been an episode of the Apartment Investing Show with me, Adam Adams. All rights are reserved. And if you haven't done so already, then make sure that you absolutely smash that subscribe button. And I'll see you on the next episode.